In this video, we're going to be covering the second most confusing part of ArchiCAD, and that is the how we lay out our sheets and control our views. We looked at how different elements appear in their line weights and their colors and how all of those things play in. And this is sort of an extension of that same idea. So as we discussed in that previous video, ArchiCAD gives us a tremendous amount of control over how our drawings look. And that is fantastic, except that it takes a lot of management and dedication to making the drawings look a certain way without having to force it to work all the time. All the tools are there. It all works beautifully. But if you only sort of understand it, it can be very frustrating, and you want to avoid just getting by, but really learn what's going on and making the most of it. So I'm going to go to our noted plan. This is basically just our sheet. I do have furniture showing on this layer combination. So I have floor plan noted is my layer combination. I have the noted plan for my model view options. I'm using my standard pens for it's just the Masterworks pen set. I'm looking at the entire model. Basically, we have either finishes, core only, or core of load bearing elements only. So the finishes, for example, here on this composite. So if I edit this composite, here I determine which layers are core. This is a symbol for core, and which are finished. So if I want to strip that out and only see core, then I can just click this option, and there we go. There we go. We just are seeing the core of load bearing. I don't generally spend the time to explicitly determine load bearing and non-load bearing, so all of them are off. In some commercial projects, that may be very helpful, so you can get a stripped out wall plan that has the load bearing walls, and maybe all the TI stuff disappears, but it doesn't really make that much difference to me in our types of projects. But that potential is there, and I believe that setting is down here. Let's see. Structural function, load bearing, non-load bearing, undefined. So if I did want to determine which walls were load bearing, let's say take all the exterior walls, obviously. Make those load bearing, position exterior. So that's another nice way to organize your drawings. You can use this as a filter if you take the time to set this up initially. And then let's say that these two walls are my interior load bearing walls. And so I would set those parameters as well. Load bearing and position. So let's see if this works. I can find wall types. Yeah, you got me interested. Yeah, 20 more seconds and I'll give up. Structural function, position. Oh, great. Position is exterior. We'll hit those. Okay, so what we can do is Control W for walls, Control A, and we'll deselect all of the exterior walls. Now I can change the properties and make these walls interior. And that might be a wonderful way to do something with the model view option, or graphic override, where all the interior walls do something a little different. Now I can core of load bearing only, go to entire model, and I thought I made these load bearing, so let's see. Now we do core of load bearing only. So here are my load bearing walls. If that were the case, here's just the cores. And entire model. Not sure how to use this one. I'd have to do some research, but it doesn't come up very often. But that some interesting ideas there. The position, interior, exterior, and load bearing really aren't that hard to set up, and I could see some value in that. Here we have our pens. We talked about that in the other video. We choose to have these as our contours, these as our fills, so foreground pen, background pen. Don't really want a custom, so we'll use Masterworks. That custom still exists. Have to get in there and get rid of that, but for now it's good. Model view options we've talked about. Graphic overrides we've talked about. Renovation filter, and then obviously the dimensions scheme. You set these up, and each different type of dimension has different properties, primarily the precision and the unit type that you're going to be using. So all of these items down here go into determining how the plan information is going to be presented. So all of these are working together to display the floor plan in a particular way. These same items can be used for elevations, sections, interior elevations, even schedules. All these, not all of these things, but many of these things apply even to schedules. So now let's go and look at the organizer, because the organizer tells us, makes this clear. If you don't use the organizer, you're not going to have a chance. So the first thing we're going to look at is what's called the project map. And the project map is basically what I call every workspace. So we have each floor, each story here. We have each section. We have each elevation. We have each interior elevation, each worksheet, every detail. This is like a work area where information in its root form is contained. Now, if I go to first floor, that's where we were. That's what it looks like. That is the way this floor plan is going to display with the current settings. These are the current settings, including the scale. If I change the scale, obviously my markers got bigger and text change. And when I click the first floor, that just takes us to the current settings of the first floor. But there are too many things to adjust over and over again. So what we have, so I just changed the scale back, is we have views. And you can get the views here, or you can get them here. Just depends, because you typically want to look at two different types of information at the same time so you can manage it. So when I'm going to make this the view for a minute so we don't get confused. So these are both the same thing. The view is in this case coming from the first floor, but it has these settings locked in. So it's these settings down here are locked in to this particular view. So you'll notice when I click these different plans, and this is actually a 3D document, when I look at these plans, all these settings are here. I can change those settings by looking at this. So these are the settings. So the source is the first floor. The site plan source is the first floor. This roof plan, however, is from a 3D document, so it's a little bit different. But the idea is the same. These are the same thing as the project, but with particular settings hard coded into them. So when I double click this, I'm going to see the model this way. When I click the site plan, it's going to change. It's going to take the layer combination site plan. It's going to change the scale. It still will show the entire model. It's going to use the Masterworks 10 set with colors. It's going to change the model view options to site plan. It's going to change it to a coordination plan graphic override. Still going to show the proposed plan from a renovation filter standpoint. Now our dimensions are in decimal feet, and then the zoom area is a little different as well, and it's going to save that. So these are now the same information from the project map, but these view settings, these view properties are associated with each one of these. So that is the basic concept. So we get all of these set up, and it becomes a good practice to when you're working, instead of going through and manually adjusting these, go into, even if you don't have the organizer open, just go up here, do view map, and click first floor proposed, and that's where you want to work. And then if you inadvertently draw on a layer that's not supposed to be visible right now, it'll warn you, and that's going to be an important thing to have happen. So here's my organizer back. Now it becomes views that go on sheets. So the views go on sheets. So if I look at the first floor noded plan, the first floor dimensioned plan, these have first floor plan proposed. It's this project map with these settings is showing up on this sheet. So let's look at this sheet. Turn off trace. This is first floor dimensioned. This is first floor noded. And this has this view. This view is over here, and so we can see the settings of that particular view. So once you've taken the time to understand how these all work, and the last few videos have really tried to spend a lot of time on how that works, then you just set them up, associate them to a view, drop that view on the drawing. Now, I think that it would be a better practice change these views to also be called noded instead of proposed. This is just the site plan. This is just the roof plan. I don't generally do a dimensioned roof plan separately, so I'm going to get rid of that view. So if I keep this organized in the same way that the sheets are organized, then I don't have to fight with it or be confused. So here are these sections. I have all these sections are coming from the view map, but again, they just have the settings built in. These are my working sections. I don't need to put those on a sheet, so there's no view associated with those two. Now, how do you get from a drawing with particular settings that you want to a sheet? So the best way is you already have your template set up and it just happens. So that's your first goal. Short of that, you know, there'll be times when you have to create a new sheet. What you're going to do is take your view, take your floor plan here, and set it up the way you want to see it. So basically set up these parameters down here. Do not let them be set to custom. Big problem. Never let these be custom. Each one of these needs to be an explicit choice so that you can make an explicit choice here. And as I change, this is the current settings. That's the same as what's down here. It's 1:1. This is the current zoom. This is fit in window. There's going to be that. I don't want a fit in window. I want current zoom just to make it a little easier when I place my drawing. I'll put this to current zoom. This is my dimension style, which I don't really have dimensions, but I still want to set a style just in case there was one. And I don't want to set it to a custom. And here I'd have to make it a custom, so I don't want to do that. All these are set up and I control it from here. That's controlling the current view as I see on my screen. Then I take a view, I highlight where that view is going to go. And I hit save view. And it takes this workspace, if you will, what they call project map, with these settings and creates a view. And it went into propose because I had proposed selected. Now I can change this to temp. This is first floor enlarged, but it's not enlarged. So what I want to do is change the settings to 1/2 inch scale. Okay. Now I've made a modification. If I go back over here, it made the modification here as well, because this basically represents what's currently selected. But more importantly, it changed it in the settings of this particular view. Now that's baked in at 1/2 inch scale. So you'll notice all of my markers look smaller, but when they go on the plan, they'll be the same size because they're half the size, but the drawing's going to be twice as big essentially. And then move down here. There's the view. Let's say I'm going to put this on a sheet. So I'll create a new layout. Enlarged plan using my standard background for my sheet. Gonna just increment the number. So I've created a new sheet. It's automatically updated the number based on how the sheets work. Let's So I'll take a minute. This is use automatic book and subset ID assignment. So it just incremented one. Each one is going to increment by one. This is probably another video, just how to do all these numbers. I'm not going to get into it right now. That's not really the point. I will do something later on that. So this is the enlarged view. It has no drawing on it. I take the view, not from here, not place drawing. Do not ever use place drawing. I'll tell you why in a second. We're going to go to the view, drop this onto either into this sheet or physically onto the sheet. I think this is better. Drop this. May even need to rotate it to get it to fit, because this is a much bigger scale. Then I want to take, so this drawing has a title associated with it. I'm going to take the properties of this drawing and didn't do what I wanted. I'm going to rotate it here again. So here I'm modifying the drawing. This is the instance of the view on a sheet. And what I want to do here is I want to put my title in. Positioning to layout. Let's, yeah. So that kept, even though the drawing was rotated, I made it relative to the sheet. And this is the drawing. So the drawing has its own overrides. So one of them was the rotation. We can change where it's anchored. So if we change the magnification, that point will stay still. Right now it's going to lock in the center and work outward. The magnification is 100. So this enlarged scale, some people would have the desire or the tendency to just take the conventional plan and just change the magnification to 200. And I really encourage you not to do that. I don't know exactly how the text is going to scale. You can force it to try to update it here, but I just find that if you take the time to set up the drawing, a separate drawing, you have a lot more control of what's going to happen, and resist the urge to just adjust this magnification. At least do that on a last resort. Here we can change the pins. We can change if it's just based on the pen set. We can turn it to a grayscale or black and white. This overrides everything and just makes that particular drawing, that instance of the view, it effects only. So these, when you modify the drawing settings, this is your last override. So these are the pens that are being used. You can actually even directly modify those pens that are used, and this will just override for that drawing. So I don't do that. I don't know if I've ever done that. It's just everything, it's hard enough to figure out why something is the way it is. And then if you start doing manual overrides at the last minute, it's going to be pretty challenging. Full precision's generally fine. Computers are fast now. This also gives us control over the frame. If we want to fit frame to a drawing, make a printable border. Here's the color. Here's the line type. So there's our, now we have a border. So all of this is associated to the drawing, which is the actual reference of the view on the sheet. And here we can have that border at a specific offset. As I bring this down and adjust that. So let's review. We have the actual modeling workspace, stories, sections, elevations, interior elevations, all these things. These do not have permanent view settings associated with them. These are the current view settings only. And if I change the way I'm looking at my floor plan, these will change throughout my work process. So then we take that and we lock that in, these settings, into views. Take that workspace, lock in all of these settings, which are all down here. Then we take those views that are carefully organized in folders. We take those views and put them on sheets. And then our last opportunity to make any changes is to adjust the drawing settings, which is the instance of that drawing of the view on the sheet. And I think a good example would be, I'll take 2 of these. So this is the same view. This is still the enlarged view, but it's a different drawing. It's a different instance of that view. This one is rotated. This one is not. This one is using the colored pins. This is using the black and white pins, but they're the same view. So it takes the view, does the final manipulations from the settings in the drawing, and then that's what you're going to see on your sheet. So this one, if I wanted to make this view look like this view, I should be able to take the properties and inject them, and now they're exactly the same. And then I can just modify maybe the rotation, but everything else is the same. So different drawings of the same view, and I can label them separately, because this is not the view name, this is the drawing name, this is the view name here. It tells you what it's referencing. This is the referenced view, but the actual name is here, and it's that name that shows up on your title. Now both of these are positioned to layout in the center, so these are on top of each other. So very powerful. The framework that goes into this is very thoughtful, and it works extremely well. But it like a lot of the things surrounding this idea in ArchiCAD, you don't take the time to understand it and you just force your way through it over and over again, it's really frustrating, and you're gonna not like ArchiCAD. So if you find yourself feeling that way, it's because you haven't taken the time to really understand what's going on in making that work. So that's the basic process for setting up sheets. In another video, we'll get more into the details of sheet numbers and how you can clone folders for different stories and that sort of thing. But I think it was important just to get the basic principles of the distinguishing factors between the project map, the view map, the sheet, and lastly, the drawing. And if you take the time to understand that little progression and you do it consistently without using place drawing, you'll be fine. So real quick, what's wrong with place drawing? Place drawing, you can set these up and put it directly on a sheet. The problem with that is that it will just drop, I'll just show you. So let's say we're going to put it on this sheet. I place the drawing. There it is. Now it gave me a new drawing which references this first floor. So that's the whole problem. What is that? It took the name of from the project map and just duplicated it. In the view, it just dropped it on the bottom of the list. And if I do this 5 or 6 times, I get 5 or 6 of these first floors, and there's nothing to distinguish them. They're not set up in directories, and they all have the same name. So take the time to move from project map to view to sheet, modify your drawing as little as possible, and you'll find that it's a really smart, interesting, effective way to organize your drawings and make a beautiful set. And it also fits very nicely with setting up your sheets, because if you do it right, all of these sheets are previously set up, and you'll see I didn't set this up. These elevations just showed up. And because I've modeled my building in the right spot with everything on the right layer, my elevations are just creating themselves, and I didn't have to do that. That's because my template was set up in such a way that this was ready to roll. And because of that, I can just model my building, and all of a sudden my sheets are just starting to set themselves up. I have my notes on the sheets already, my legend, and I just go and do a little bit of cleanup. And if you're really good, every time you do a little cleanup and you're drawing, you go, oh, that's because my template needs to be tweaked. So like this title, okay, move the title over here, or move the legend up. And the next time you do this, it becomes more and more and more automated, and it makes it just that much easier to take all of your time, make a beautiful model, and your drawings can be as close to effortless as possible. So take the time to put this together, and you will begin to really understand the power of ArchiCAD.